All right, welcome back into another episode of Indie B&B. Today I'm joined by Tyler Schlagenhoff. Fucking nailed it. Let's go.
Got it.
Of the
Got
band
it.
Milo Bybee, out of Boise, Idaho, or formed in Boise, Idaho. So
Yep.
Tyler, how we feeling on this evening here?
Doing very well. Super happy to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. Well, you had contacted us, and we got into a little bit of your stuff, and super excited to kind of dive in a little bit more about Milo Bybee. But sometimes we like to start right at the beginning of something. I know I've
Yep.
read on the Spotify, you guys were origins of from COVID, and we kind
Yeah.
of started there. But take me through it. Where did this whole thing piece together for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. So as many people, once the lockdown happened, people were trying to find their way to pass the time. When people were locked down and nothing was opened up. And I just happened to have access to like a place where we could play some music. And the band originally started with family members of mine, so my brother and brother-in-law. So we had been around each other a bunch anyways, and so we just decided during that time that we were going to start playing some music together. All of us had played in other bands and projects throughout the years, and then many of us moved away, and this was the first time we'd all kind of lived back in the same spot. And yeah, we just decided to start playing some music and got some songs together super quickly to kind of get something somewhat formalized into a band that going into it with no expectations. But yeah, that was kind of the origins of it and where it all kicked off.
Got it. So a family affair to start. Now, is it still a family affair? What's the lineup look like now?
Yeah, no more. We're on like our third act almost. So I'd mentioned my brother-in-law who's married to our sister, and then my actual brothers. The three of us started it. So our brother-in-law had to move away. Him and our sister had a baby, so he had to step back, obviously to do father duties and all that stuff.
Certainly.
And then right after we recorded this last album, my brother, who was the bass player, he actually stepped back as well. He has a lot of songs that he writes all also that are kind of in a different genre, a little more
Hmm.
Americana, a little more folk, and so he started his own group actually. And so he just stepped back, and we just replaced him with a new bass player too. So we're kind of on our third act,
Yeah.
we're on our, I'll say second drummer, but we had a lot of interim drummers in between one and number two, second bass player, and then we added a lead guitar player as well. So we
All right.
we're now a team of four.
All right. It's kind of interesting. I like will get I'm on the groups in Instagram, and like people are looking for players. Like when you do that,
Hmm.
like how do you kind of assimilate somebody into the group? Like
Yeah,
what's that like?
for sure. Especially starting out where it was two guys who I'm super close with, and
Yeah.
and get along with really well. Obviously, we mesh super well. Like that's why we had never originally added another member, just because we were so tight together, and it was like you don't want to mess up the dynamic necessarily. And so our bass player was actually, let me back up. So when we added a new drummer. He was sent to us through a mutual friend of ours, a mutual friend who I know wasn't just going to send us anyone and everyone, that knew would
Yeah.
mesh well with us, would vibe well with us. So I had a mutual connection there to him. He actually came, the drummer came and checked us out, before he obviously came and practiced with us or anything. So he saw us play live.
Got it.
And then I tell the story all the time when he came and practiced with us the first time, when my brother and I were still kind of filling it out, like we'll see, gonna give a couple guys a shot. The very first beat that this drummer started playing, like literally right off the bat, turned into one of our songs called "Run Run" off our last album. Like literally, not an exaggeration. He just started playing it just to kind of warm up. We all jumped in and we like wrote a song on the spot, and so then kind of the rest was history. He's our drummer now. And then later on down the road, he knew Tony, who's our existing bass player right now. And over the years, Tony has filled in for us during other shows when my brother playing bass, couldn't make a
Hmm.
show or something like that, and some pretty big shows, like filled in some for some pretty big shows. Like when we opened for Hawthorne Heights,
Sure.
it's probably a sold out venue, 1,000 people or so, just a smaller venue in Boise. Oh, but filled in for that show. We also played with a band called Foxing, who's done a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
touring with.
They're big.
Coheed and Cambria, Manchester Orchestra, a lot of big bands, and he played that show with us. And then also we went and played a festival in Reno called Offbeat. So those were three like back to back to back shows that he filled in for. That are some of our biggest shows to date. So it's kind of funny how it worked out. And then when we needed a more permanent person, he was kind of the obvious choice there. And then our lead guitar player, it's actually kind of funny. He was playing in another local band here that I'm friends with and that I really respect. They make a lot of really great stuff, but they're not playing a lot live. It's more writing stuff, recording, etc. And I had reached out to them to see if somebody different in their band would be interested in like learning some of our songs, maybe playing some leads. And long story short, he proposed his guitar player at that time to come play some shows with us, and he filled in for those same exact shows that I just mentioned, and kind of the rest is history. So he then joined us on more of a permanent basis, and on this new album that we have coming out, he actually recorded the lead guitar on that part as well, or on that album.
Awesome. So we got, I like the kind of the progression, we go from, kind
Yeah,
of the knit to like, hey, like now we're still, it still seems like you keep the same vibe, but it's ultimately
yeah,
like people you trust that,
for sure.
reached out to, or, they, again, if you've played those kind of larger opening slots, I mean, obviously they have the gall to go in there and do it that way.
Right,
So it's like, hey, like
for sure.
let's get them in the studio with us. So
Yeah,
very
yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Well, look, want to transition. You mentioned the studio, and kind of want to understand a little bit more about the songwriting process. Like "Time
Yeah.
Machine" was a song that will be our song spotlight of the day today, and it'll be linked down there in the bio with us. But take me through kind of from nothing to something. "Time Machine." Like, are you the main songwriter? What's that look like?
Yeah, so predominantly I'm the main songwriter. However, it varies in terms of like when I bring something to the guys, like how baked in it is, right? It's typically like my strengths are really like hearing a melody, coming up with a melody on the guitar, maybe having somewhat of a hook or a vocal pattern, and then bringing it to the rest of the guys. My strength isn't necessarily sitting down and writing a song from beginning to end. Nor do I want that necessarily. I want everybody's spin on it, everyone's feedback, everyone's flavor on it, and so Time Machine specifically was actually one that I didn't. I came in with probably a very, very, very baseline, like couple of initial chords, and my drummer Jason and I. Um, I've never actually called him Jason. He goes by Lupe. That's funny that I just said that, but Lupe, our drummer. Our drummer and I actually kind of wrote that song and fleshed that song out, like the very beginning part of it. If you listen to the song, it's just kind of me singing at the beginning with a couple of chords with some weird synth effect I've put on my guitar, and then he comes in kind of with the drums. And so that kind of initial punchy part, like he and I just went back and forth and back and forth and kind of came up with that collectively together. And then Wes, our former bass player, jumped in on it and put his spin on it. And then later on in that process, the lead guitar player put his parts into it. So Time Machine was a little bit different, but traditionally, yeah, I'll bring in kind of a blueprint for a song. And again, kind of I'd never really come in. Lyrics is always like the last thing that comes, and that's the thing that I dislike the most. I shouldn't say dislike because I like the whole process, but that's the part I look forward to the least. I'll say because it comes the hardest to me, whereas the other stuff comes a little bit easier. So typically, yeah, I'll bring a song in that's somewhat baked in, and then the guys kind of take it from where it was to where it is, and it's cool. At least from my perspective, somebody who had heard the song from inception, like when I was coming up with something, to where it is now in its final product, is always something super cool that I like to experience.
Yeah, like what do you do whenever you're like trying to come up with the lyrics and again it's the you're having a challenge there. Like what are some things
Yeah,
you do any exercises, or is it like I just go out and
yeah.
go to Bogus Basin up there and ride down the mountain? I mean,
Yeah, right, right. It's all over the place. Sometimes it's as simple as like me sitting down and like trying to come up with words that rhyme, like that would fit in the pattern, right? I was a literacy teacher for a long time, and so I was always like a fan of vocabulary and vocabulary words, have a lot of experience teaching a lot of them, and so I would try to kind of push myself to like come up with words that rhyme, that fit, that also can kind of have higher meanings, right? And people can like interpret it in different ways. So that's when I'm really like on it, like writing lyrics. But oftentimes it's just like sometimes throwing some things at the wall and seeing if they stick. If you listen to a lot of our songs, like they're not super deep lyrically. They're pretty surface level, just because that's kind of the music that I listened to and grew up listening to, that kind of bleeds its way into like our style. Just kind of the simplicity of that. And sometimes I'll literally just hit a blocker. And if that happens, like, especially in rehearsal, like sometimes all the way up until when we're in the studio, when I fine tune and like tweak lyrics while I'm in the studio. But, oftentimes in practice, it's just like me singing nonsense. I'll typically be able to get the lyric pattern and the melody in my head. But the words that I just sing in practice, I have a lot of recordings where it's just like literally jargon, that I'm saying, just until I can kind of sit down and get that part fleshed out.
Yeah, the singing and nonsense. I like that. You get
Yep.
just get kind of the what it's supposed to sound like ish, and then like
Yep.
we'll fill in some gaps later.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, there's been a lot of times where I'm literally like in the vocal booth in the studio, like finalizing the lyrics, which pushing it to last minute.
I love it. I love it. Well, now album due out February. Is that correct? So is everything
February
done, or
20th. Yep.
you still kind of
Everything's
getting
done.
everything's done?
Yep.
February
Everything's
20th. You
done.
said.
February 20th. Yep. We recorded
All
six
right.
songs. So it's an EP coming out called Revisions. And that's out. We're working with Gold Ship Records now for this one. It's a great partnership. We're releasing it via them. On the 20th. Yeah, it'll be six songs, and then we worked with a producer, and we had two of those six remixed, and so there's kind of a EDM almost kind of remix to two of those songs that will be released on a custom vinyl only in May. Actually, I shouldn't say only. I'm sure we'll release it on digital platforms as well, but it won't be with the original album release.
Got it. Got it. And there's a couple shows that are coming with that as well, right? I know I saw a couple
Yep.
more dates in your y'all's bio.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We have a fundraiser show for our radio station here, Radio Boise, coming up at the end of this month, actually, January 30th. And then our big album release party. We're having a big album release party here in Boise. A couple local bands joining us on the bill. We're just, want to throw a huge party for everyone. We're having it at an old cathedral building here built in 1907 that's never had an actual rock show in it. All sorts of different other types of events, but it's going to be super loud and it's going to be super fun. And then we're playing, we have Shreveport Music Fest here in Boise that happens every year, and it's kind of a pinnacle of our year. We look forward to that every year. I think this is our fourth or fifth time playing it. Huge festival, really, really cool festival, 500 or so plus bands. And we'll be playing that in March. And then way later down the road in May, we're playing at another festival. It's a micro festival called Shellraiser, and it's in Wells, Nevada. And we played it a couple of years ago. Actually, this band on my hat, the Ravenettes, we played with them at that festival. And super, super fun festival that's just a 2-day fest there. So
very
a lot
cool.
going on.
I mean, a lot of cool things. I've heard of Tree Fort, and like again, that's one of those ones that West Coast. I'm here in Atlanta. Like we've got our we've got our one festival we do, Shaky Knees every year. But then I've heard
right,
Tree Fort. Right. I've heard the one down in Utah, Kilby Block Party. Like those are ones
Kilby
that
Block Party, yeah.
are ones that are great for this kind of genre of like getting in and
Yeah.
learn about some bands. Connor Kelly and the Time
For
War
sure.
was one of the bands that I've met, kind of been doing this, and they were talking about how they had a great experience at Tree Fort. So
Yeah, it's amazing. We actually just played Kilby Court in Utah a couple weeks ago.
wow.
We'd love to attend, the festival there. They got some really awesome names on it this year. Turnstile, Haley Williams. I mean, that's enough said right there. It's going to be the block party's going to be super rad this year. But yeah, a lot of great festivals over here for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, like talk me through, I want to get into like the scene a little bit in Boise. Like what's that,
Yeah.
what's it like? Is it mainly, a rock scene? Is it a rap scene? Is it, somewhere in the middle? Do y'all have a lot of, smaller cap venues? Like what's the lay of the land there?
Yeah, so because of Treefort, it's, I mean, exploded. I
Yeah.
was born and raised here. I moved away for a long time and then moved back. But growing up in this scene, like it was, I grew up in kind of the punk, emo, screamo, hardcore kind of phase, and so I was going to, to shows constantly, in that genre, growing up. But in general, like it's a lot of smaller cap venues. I mean, I bet our largest venue here, well, we have a couple like big arenas, like college arenas and whatnot, but or like
Hmm.
Boise State Arena and whatnot. But a majority of the venues, like the main go tos, are yeah, like 1,000 cap, maybe 1,500 cap. But then you do got a couple of the the big arenas for some of the really large bands. But Treefort and the organization that put on Treefort, they're like the main booking agent here in town. They're called Duck Club, and they do just a phenomenal job of booking anything and everything here in town. So every night of the week here in Boise, there you could probably go see 5 or 6 different shows. And for how the size of Boise, which isn't humongous, like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's anywhere from Americana to rap to rock to grunge to, I mean, you got kind of everything across the board, which is really cool to see. It's really allowed for that creativity to kind of blossom and be like get out of the garage or get out of your bedroom. We have venues that are some of those incubators, where people go, and sometimes it's just even live streamed, which is fantastic for bands just starting out. Get out there, practice playing on stage, playing in front of, start to play in front of some people. So you really have, your pick here in terms of size of venue as an artist, but also as somebody going to the shows. And Boise is now becoming like a stop on bands tours. Like
Yeah.
for so many years, like people were just skipping over Boise. Like why stop in Boise, especially when we're surrounded by Seattle and Portland and Salt Lake City and some
Hmm.
big scenes. It just makes all has made total sense to stop in Boise, but didn't necessarily make sense before. But now it's definitely on the map now. And then from an artist, like it's great. Like I think this is my own opinion, but I feel like if we were a band in Seattle, we're one of like a million, right?
Yeah.
It's a really small fish in a humongous pond. I mean, Seattle obviously is kind of the pinnacle of music scene, but whereas Boise, I feel like if you are a band that's trying to take whatever it is to the next level, you can stand out a little bit more, in a market like this because it is on people's minds now. There are notable bands coming through here, but there's also like not a billion bands, that are just
Yeah.
forming. But what I will say, there are a lot of bands here, and again, I've lived in several different places, engaged in different music scenes around, and the talent that's coming out of Boise is unreal. I don't know if just the bar's kind of been raised because you are putting
Mhm.
in for these festivals like Treefort, and not everyone gets in. So it's kind of raising the bar, I feel, a little bit. I think the access that people have to rehearsal spaces, and like I said, some of those incubator venues and shows, like it's just kind of raising the bar, I feel, because every day I'm learning and hearing of new bands that are from here that just really, 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 amazing talent. So it's cool to be in a scene like that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's kind of like an up and like almost like, hey, like now you're kind of getting to the point where it's maturing and like getting to that, I
Yes.
wouldn't say up and coming, but like definitely
Yeah,
maturing.
for
Um,
sure.
you know,
100%.
yeah,
Especially when we are surrounded by some of those bigger cities because we're that type of band. We're not in the situation, we all have kids and families where we can go hit the road for a month or so, but it's
yeah,
it's pretty easy to put together like a run to Seattle and Portland or even down to Salt Lake. Put a couple of dates around those in some
yeah,
key markets, which is really cool. And then people are learning who or learning about us or learning of other bands coming from Boise, discovering that there is talent in Boise, and so I think that just helps to kind of spread the awareness a little bit.
yeah. I was gonna ask where the kind of the touring like footprint is, but you kind of answered it there. Like, I mean,
Yeah, for sure, and that's kind of where we're at too. Like we're it's easy going back to, the size of Boise. It's also very easy to oversaturate yourself, I feel, in Boise. So like you can only play the amount of venues we have here so many times, right? And so we're trying to play a lot more shows out of town. Like I said, we just made a run to Utah, played several dates there. Just got back from a super short run over to Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, a couple of those areas. Heading down to Nevada for a couple of festivals. Like trying to just get out as much as possible out of the state, just for many reasons. But those are some of especially like a Seattle and a Salt Lake. Like if we could hit those, once every other quarter or something, I think I'd be happy with that because they're hard to book. They're hard to get into.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I know, like, I've had several bands on talking about touring and like that. Process is really like you're cold. Emailing, cold
Yeah.
calling people and trying to get the right booker on the
Yep.
phone, and you may not have the whatever format they want you in, like
Right,
as
for
far as
sure. Because they're
the
probably getting hit up by 100 other people,
yeah,
that you're stacked up against, and that's where I feel like we've had a little bit of success too. We're working with a talent group now, like a manager, and he's obviously advocates on our behalf and helps that mainly so I don't have to do it because I have a
yeah,
full time job too, on top of this, and so he's able to really support that, and I think that helps a little bit, right? Like somebody that's it's not just hearing from another band, these booking agents,
yeah,
like they're hearing from representation, almost kind of that other, a higher level of professionalism, I guess, if that sounds right. Not that bands aren't professional reaching out to venues, but just
sure,
like the look, I guess. But that's, again, my own personal opinion because we booked our own gigs for 5 years now or 4 years now. And I'm the person, that's not afraid to write the email and knock on doors and be told no, 100 times, and then get told yes for your Hawthorne Heights and those types of shows.
yeah.
The small select amount of times, but that's also I think what keeps me doing it anyways because we have had some success in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think like anytime you do get those, it seems like you get those larger opportunities, like you want to go and put your best foot forward and connect with the crowd, and again,
Yeah.
some people aren't even in there at the time, but like the people that are in there,
Right.
like obviously they're in there because they love music and they love that type of music, and so getting
Yeah.
like hey, engaging with those fans, getting those people, and
For sure.
excited, like that's
Yeah.
something that's definitely useful
Well,
in
and I
building
think
the
it's
fan base.
just yeah, for sure. And I think it's just like not it's just your presence and your the awareness of when we have singles out, when we have music out, like making sure you push it out, making sure you're doing all the reels and the social posts and the promotion because it's
Yeah,
not sometimes we were lucky in one instance where they actually came to us. It was it was funny. I got a DM in on Instagram one time, and it was from Fred Mascherino, who is the longtime guitar player for Taking Back Sunday, and I literally got the message from him, and as you do, you're just like, oh, this is a scam. This isn't real. But it was literally him, like that found us and reached out to us. Like he was coming through Boise on an acoustic tour. He has another band. He's back playing with Taking Back Sunday now and Say Anything, but he has his band, The Color Fred. But then he was also doing a solo acoustic tour, and he was coming through Boise, and he was looking for a band that he vibed with, that he, dug the tunes and the sound to play with as he was coming through town, and just literally cold reached out to us, and we played a show with him, and
yeah.
it was just super super surreal, like him finding us and reaching out to us just because of some of those additional efforts that I feel like we take.
Yeah, I think sometimes artists, like every time I talk to people, a lot of people have a love hate with the kind of the content and all the stuff you kind of have to do now. I mean, like I'm included in that. Like we have
Yeah.
to we got to be. I look at myself. I got to be better about that stuff. But like ultimately, when you get something like that, it's like okay, it wasn't all for naught. Like I got there was
Exactly.
something about it that
Exactly.
like
Yep.
finally like it happened.
Exactly. That's exactly
Um,
right. And it's like, we're in the press tour almost right now. We have a PR team that we've been doing a lot of, interviews and promotion, just things like this too, because it's like
yeah,
we, at the end of the day, I would play and record music just for the sake of doing it. Like I love
yeah,
writing music. I love recording it. I love having that final product of it. Like in my book, like that's a win. However, if we can get it in front of as many people's ears as possible, like to have a reaction to that too, like that's just that next level up. And I feel like all of this stuff just adds to that too, right? Just adds to, figuring out who we are, learning our tunes, going back and listening to the other tunes in our catalog, and just kind of growing our fan base that way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, speaking of growing your fan base, I mean, this next segment probably won't grow your fan base as much, but we'll learn a little
Right.
bit more about you, through
Yeah.
the magic of the this or that question. So
Let's do it.
we'll rip into a little Pete Peterson party pack of questions. Tyler to go, it'll go rapid fire, but we can kind of banter in between if you want. So
Yeah.
we'll rip into it here. Tyler of Milo Bibey, cake or pie? Let's rip into it.
Pie.
He's pieing it up. All right, we like it. Salad
Yeah.
or soup?
Ooh, salad.
Salad. All right, we like it. All right, sunrise or sunset? What's better over those Boise Mountains?
Ooh, I like sunsets.
I love it. I love it. All right, would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
I was a baseball player and up through college, and I hit a home run before, so I would love to score a touchdown.
Okay. All right, love that. All right, night in or night out? What are you having more of these days?
Night in. Father of a 3-year-old. Night in.
He's in the war
And
every day.
I'm not complaining. Yep, I love it.
Awesome. Well, all right, when you do go out and your jam comes on, you more like to hit the robot or the worm in the middle of the dance floor?
Ooh, robot, for sure.
All right, all right. Guac or queso at your favorite Tex-Mex spot?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say guac.
All right, bonus question. What color is y'all's queso? Is it white or is it yellow in Boise?
We have both actually, but it's predominantly yellow.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Trying to
Are
figure
you
out what
white?
the
Are
yellow
you white over
queso
there?
line is
Yeah.
like in the country. Like there's
Yeah.
got to be a line.
Are you all white?
We're all white here. There's no
Yeah,
yellow
really?
queso here in Georgia.
Really? We definitely have several taco places that are all white.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know
yeah,
what
I'm
it
curious
is.
what's
I don't know
more
what it is. The search
authentic.
continues though.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Waffling up. All right. Coffee or tea with your waffles?
Coffee for sure.
I love it.
I'm a
All right,
coffee snob.
dogs or cats?
Dogs.
All right, we need more dogs. We love it. All right. Ninja or a pirate? What do you identify more with?
Ooh. So I have to put the most thought into this one. I would say nowadays probably a pirate.
Yeah.
When I was younger, probably a ninja, but as I get older, definitely a pirate.
I love it. I love it. All right. Chips or pretzels?
Chips.
Chipping it up. All right. Fries or tots?
Tots for sure.
Love that. All right. TV show or a movie after a long day?
TV show.
Got it. All right. Are aliens real?
Yes.
Okay. Bigfoot. Is that real?
I would say yes too.
All right. All right. Is love at first sight real?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
and you've mentioned a few of these, but give me a couple bands. Just give me two that are, maybe local, Boise bands that you want to put on that we ought to check out.
Yeah, so I would actually say my brother that branched off to start his own band, they just went and recorded like their first, full recording as a band, and there's some really good stuff they're putting out. They're called Wes Schlag, so half of my last name, Wes Schlag and the Bad Quitters, and he's an incredible musician himself, and they're putting out some really really great stuff.
All right.
And then I would also say there's a band here in town. They're actually playing our album release party with us. They're called Arcade Sarcasm. They're a bunch of young guys, probably early 20s, and they're super rad. They're kind of a mix of rock, alternative, even a little bit of like spoken word in there, in some places, strategically placed. But that's a band I would definitely check out for sure.
All right. We got Westschlag and the Bad Quitters, and then Arcade Sarcasm. All right.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and have to check them out.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, you conquered the Pete Peterson party pack of questions. Let's run through the dates and the things coming up one more time. I
Yeah.
think I got them, but you correct me whenever I mess it up. All right. So February 20th, EP out. All right. Album
Yep.
release show also February 20th, correct?
Sorry, February 28th. I don't think I mentioned that before. Yeah.
Okay. Feb 28th, album release show. February 20th, the album is out. We have the Radio Boise fundraiser coming up as well. What date is
Yep.
that?
That's January 30th.
Jan 30th. All right. And then, of course, May we have March we have Tree Fort Music Festival, and then we're down in Reno at Wells Music Festival, Wells, Nevada for another. I wrote that, but I cannot remember the May
It's all
Music
good.
Festival in Nevada.
Yeah, it's called Shell Raiser.
Shell Raiser, like Hellraiser,
Shell
but
Raiser.
shells.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And then we did one thing I didn't mention too. This Friday, actually, and this will come out later than that, but
Yeah.
January 16th is when our single "I Wish You Well" is out. That's the second and final single off the album before the full album release on the 20th.
Love it. I love it. So we're getting a little bit more tunage, and that
Yeah.
that will have been out for for a little bit of time by the time
Yeah.
this comes out. So that's perfect. We'll have our listeners go check
Yeah,
that
go
out
listen.
as well.
Yeah.
Awesome, Tyler. Well, appreciate you taking the time, man. I appreciate you coming on, and look forward to all the dates we just mentioned, and getting the new music out here, and hopefully in the future a East Coast run that includes our fine city here in Atlanta.
Absolutely. I would love that. Come check out Tree Forest sometime too.
Yeah, I need to get some stuff together here for that. So
Yeah, for sure.
awesome, man.
Cool.
All
Well,
right,
thanks
take
so much.
care.
I appreciate it.
Awesome, man.